why that works well, what we're aiming for. And then I'll try to present you a number of options of materials that are available. I teach this, this course at a number of different colleges, David Yellin, George Washington, Herzog, and I would love to have the 28 hours of a one semester course to teach you the whole method, but because we don't have that, we'll try to give you enough links, and you know, to some extent it's going to be up to you to follow up on it and find the materials. If you do decide to use the app and the books that are the English Club, at the moment, we'll be talking about this. At the moment, the app is free, or almost free. I made it as free as I could. The app is a really self-guided way for students who have a mobile device, a smartphone or a tablet at home, to work with you or independently between lessons. So let's get started. Adele? Okay. There is a website with many documents that you can download and use, and the reason I developed the English Club is that in order to use these documents, you need to know which documents to use, but I think it's pretty clearly organized there, and you can look at the website. Can we go to the next slide? Adele? Okay, so what are we aiming for? We're aiming to teach reading, which is a combination of two steps, as you know, decoding and comprehension. And struggling readers, one of their biggest problems is that so much of their attention is going to just sounding out the words, to decoding, that they don't have much attention left over for understanding what they're reading. And our goal through this method is to automatize, to make it more automatic, the process of decoding, to leave over attention for comprehension. And we also want to help them learn to encode, to write, and to write correctly, not just to write how it sounds, but to learn the rules of spelling so that they can write the words correctly, because that's a clearer way to communicate, obviously. Okay. So the elements of this method are to teach the letter sound correspondence, which, you know, these technical terms are grapheme, phoneme. Sometimes you have a combination of letters that makes a different sound than each of the letters would make individually. You all know vowel combinations, digraphs, etc. There are patterns in English spelling that even most English teachers don't generally learn as part of their training. These are things that my colleague Janina Kahn-Harwitz talks about a lot. For example, when do you double consonants at the end of a word? When do you use EI and when do you use IE, etc. So these are called orthography, and there's a document on the website that you can download with all the rules that we teach in this approach. We teach students something that some people think that this is too hard for struggling learners, but we teach types of syllables and how to divide syllables to help in decoding, because the idea is that if you give tools that they learn once, then they can use it in every word. They can apply it in all the words, and they don't have to learn every word individually, how to sound it out. And of course, there are always words that don't follow the normal patterns. And we teach them, we introduce them as we teach the letters. We introduce the common sight words that they need to learn to just recognize. You know, the first example being the word said, S-A-I-D, because there's no way to sound that out given the normal sound of A-I or A by itself or I by itself. So we teach those individually. Adele? some people have said, oh, well, this method is just about learning to decode. But the fact is that much of the method focuses on also the meaning of what the student is reading. And we do that gradually together with what we introduce, vocabulary words that are learned. When they learn to read and write them, they also learn their meanings. We teach them units of meaning in prefixes and suffixes, which exponentially expands their vocabulary. You know, if they learn what un, dis, li, ed mean, then they can figure out a word from knowing its root and the affixes. And we also ask WH questions. Who is in this story? What is he doing? How does he solve this problem? Why does he jump up and down in the last frame, etc.? And we get the students to look at the story and to pull out the answers from the story themselves using the WH questions as a guide. The reason that this method works well is that it builds up systematically. First, we teach the letters and their sounds, and then we combine only the letters that they've learned into words, and the words into sentences, and those into stories. And we use illustrations in the form of comics to support comprehension. And we thoroughly integrate the new material that they learn, a new letter combination, a new tip to English, into what they've already learned, and integrate it, and we practice it with all the language skills: speaking, hearing, comprehending, writing, and reading before we move on. And so it's a very thorough way of starting reading really at a very early age. And we only ask the learner to read and write things that they've already learned to read and write, so that we're not surprising them with anything. It's a very secure environment. And if we see that they still, you know, they're having trouble with the newest material, we can dwell on that and practice it more before we go on to introducing more new material. And the benefit of this is that it gives a feeling of success, which gives the students confidence. I think one of the biggest problems with remedial students, particularly older ones, is their history of failure, their learned helplessness, that they've tried to learn and the way that they've been taught didn't work for them, and they feel already a resistance to investing any further effort. You get that, that shrug, that famous shrug, en die koach, you know, this shrug, that really, that's, I would say that's the biggest challenge that we have to overcome, is trying to give them the motivation to make the effort, because if they make the effort and they spend time and they practice, they can do it by this method. I really have never seen a learner who can't. But, you know, I know from my personal experience that you have to offer them some rewards, and I don't know how you're going to reward them. You know, I would say after every 10 lessons, have a party. I don't know how you're going to do that in the current situation, but there should be some kind of a reward. I don't know, maybe watch an English movie together remotely every 10 lessons, or whatever it is that you can find. Or if you are able to meet with them periodically, you can spend the time also celebrating. So here's a link to the website that I've been building over the course of maybe 15 years, that has many documents, my documents on the method. And then every time I teach a class, I enlist the aid of my students to write lesson material. And there are hundreds of lessons on this website. And all of them are in the form of documents that you can download. If you want to, you can download the documents. I don't know how much you do this, but you can actually send the document files to your students for them to have a paper copy. And you can also display the story, the word list, and the games on your screen. There's a teacher named Hagit Lahav in Givatayim who's been teaching online using this method, and she sent pictures. If you look for Hagit Lahav in Facebook, she has been posting pictures of how she plays games. Like recently, she sent me a picture of playing tic-tac-toe with words from, the game is on that website that I just, the link is there. And she plays it with her student on the screen. And you have a selection of material for every lesson. The first in the individual lesson materials, the first lesson in each one is one that I wrote. The first 30 are that's material from the English Club, and it matches up with what's in the app. So, and then you have many other choices as well. So you can use it by, again, send the documents to the students so they can follow along. Perhaps they will be able to make up the paper games, a puzzle, they can cut it apart and do it. They can read off of the paper. They'll have something to read in between lessons. They can write on the word list. And you can also put them up on your screen and go over it together as a class. So each lesson has three, I recommend that you plan 3 sets of activities for each lesson. Start with review of what they've learned before. And the reason for this is to reload what they've learned into the students' short-term memory. In other words, they've learned it. It's not yet really in their long-term memory. Certainly if they are, if they've just learned it recently, it's still not really, you don't have the neuron paths to automatically remember it. So review, reload it into their short-term memory by going over the letters and their sounds that they've learned so far, and quickly reading through words. You can put all these things up on your screen and do it together as a group. Then learn the new material. The new material is generally very defined. Letters, words, words that you can write using the new letter that you've just learned. Tips and practice writing sounds. You dictate the sound and they have to try to remember how to write it. And then you practice the new material by reading a story, writing words, playing a game, and that's the standard approach. The review, when we normally teach this way, we use cards for the letters. In the English Club books that some of you have, there are cards in the back that you can cut out and actually hold in your hand, but you'll have to be creative. If they're going to use the app, the cards are built into the app. And if you're not using the app or the books, you'll need to figure out a way to display cards on the screen. There are cards on the website that you can, a document that you can use, and the order of teaching is also on that website that I gave you. And we run through a quick review to, as I said, to reload this information into the student's short-term memory so it's available during the current lesson. Adele?
Yeah.
Can you go and, yeah.
Next
Okay.
slide, Adele.
Next slide.
It's already there.
Switches it. There's a little,
Okay.
Fern, there's a little bit of a delay.
Yeah, there's a lag. There's a lag.
Okay. Yeah, I see a lag in my my face, so okay. So the new material that we teach is a letter or letters, some tips to English, and then words that use the new material and the tips. Go ahead. Here's an example. The letter D, and normally we teach the small form of the letter in the center of the card. We put it because that is by far the more common way that it's going to show up in text that students are going to see. So we focus on lowercase, and in the bottom right-hand corner, we put the uppercase. And what we expect the student to be able to do is look at the front of the card, look at the letter, and say out loud, and this is what we teach them, the sound, duh, duh. And a clue word that, ideally the student chooses the clue word and draws the picture himself, but under these conditions, I think you're gonna have to choose something and draw it. They should say the sound, duh, dog, and the clue word. And the name of the letter is less important for reading. The name of the letter is important for perhaps taking dictation or spelling, but the important thing when reading is the sound of the letter. And so for that, they need to remember the clue word helps them to have something more that's easier to remember, to kind of cement the sound in their head. Because, all those vowel sounds like A for apple, even I have to think apple when I say A, because there are several sounds to the letter A. Besides the long sound A, there's also A in the word father. So the more common short sound is A for apple. The clue word helps you to remember that sound. And that's the goal of the, when you teach each new letter, you teach it with its sound. Again, the order of teaching is on that website. Another an element of new material is the tips to English. And here I show them in card format. There's a document on the website, both for the Hebrew and for the Arabic. And you teach the principle and discuss it in your online teaching, and go through different examples of words that use this new principle to using the letters that you've taught so far. And you give examples that only use the letters and combinations that they've learned so far, so that they can actually read the examples and they can see it in action. And with these tips, we don't expect the students to be able to immediately recite the principle. Here, the principle is that the letter C makes the sound K before any letter except for E, I, and Y. You know that E, I, and Y, a C before it will say S, but the K sound is much more common. And it's, because the name of the letter C is C, many students always say the S sound. So we teach this relatively early, and then we teach the CE, CI, CY much later, so that they really get the sound of K, which is more common in English for the letter C. And there are about, I would say, 14 pages of these cards in a document on the website. I saw that somebody just sent out the link again. It's also in the if you click on the link in the PowerPoint earlier, you'll find all these documents. Okay, now another source of the tips to English, I animated all of these tips to English in the English Club, and I put the videos of the animations onto YouTube. So if you look for the English Club.
Wait, Fern, let's show them one.
Okay,
Adele,
so if you click on
show
the
them one.
example, the BD tip in Hebrew, I hope this will. Okay, so you see there are playlists there as well.
הנה שתי שיטות להזכיר לכם את הכיוונים של האותיות B ו-D. שיטה ראשונה, קוראים אנגלית משמאל לימין, וב-ABC האות B באה לפני האות D. A, B, C, D. צרו עם הידיים את האותיות B ו-D. היד השמאלית היא B, והיד הימנית היא D. כמו הכיוון משמאל לימין של ה-ABC. שיטה שנייה. כש-B ו-D פונות אחת לשנייה לפי הסדר הנכון, הן יוצרות bed, מיטה. אבל אם הן הפוכות, זאת מיטה רעה. A bad bed, והאיש נופל מהמיטה. Bed, bad bed.
So the one in Arabic is the same tip, but with Arabic narration. So that I don't know what percentage of your students are Arabic speaking, but this should help them to tune in to the content of those tips. I saw that somebody asked, are there captions? Is that, I suppose, for deaf students? Is that why you're asking about that? Okay, well, whatever. Okay, if anybody has deaf students and can't hear the explanations and wants the text that's narrated, write to me and I will send you the text.
Yeah, I have hard hearing and deaf students.
Okay, so they are not captioned, but if you would like me to send you the text that's narrated in Hebrew or Arabic, I can.
That would be great. Yes, I'll do that.
Okay, so write to me and I will. Okay, another document on the website is the word list that gives all the words that the student can read and write, given the letters that he's learned so far. And the ones that are starred and in bold are the most common words. These are words that you're most likely to find on the band 1 list. And you can see that, you know, there are some words like those in parentheses that are not really appropriate for beginning learners. So focus on the bold ones. Those are the ones that are most important. And this list goes all the way up through Hickey lesson, I think 99, with the most common words. At some point, I stopped putting all the words because there's so many, but the most common words, 500 most common words in the English language. And as you can see, these are words that you can use. You can put them up on your screen. You can read them together. You can have the students write them. And these are the words around which the stories that we're subsequently going to see were built. Okay. So to practice, we read a story, then we dictate the words, and we expect that the learner, now that they've learned their sounds, is able to write the words just from hearing them. And you can have them write them, you know, on paper, or you can have them type it on their computer. I know that last night somebody came by to pick up books who works with disabled students who can't really write, but they type. So she's going to put text boxes on top of all the documents, and then we play a game. Okay, I see a question. Are you going to save the questions and I'll answer them afterward? I would appreciate that because it's distracting for me. Okay. All right, we'll go over them afterward. And then we try to end by playing a game because that's fun, you know, and playing games is excellent practice and it's motivating and it's fun and it's like painless, and that's a good way to practice. So here are examples of the story and word list from the very first lesson when they've learned 5 letters, I, T, P, N, S, which are the most common letters in the English language. And that's the order in which we teach them, from the most common to the least common. So this is not the alphabet, you know, where you go from A to Z, get to Z, and then the students still can't read. This is the most common letters. We start in lesson 1 with 5 letters, which is the most of any of the lessons. Now, as you can see, I took the document and I used my snip tool. If you haven't learned about the snip tool, which my daughter taught me a few years ago, go look for it in your computer. It's wonderful because you can take a picture of anything that's on your screen and turn it into a graphic. So it simplifies displaying things on your screen. You can, you know, here I've taken a picture of the whole story, but if you think that you know, that showing the story in full screen is going to be too small, you could take a picture frame by frame if you prefer and do it in 6 frames. But as you can see, the comics format, the stories are pretty much 1-page comics format, and the pictures illuminate in the full meaning of the word illumination for illustration. They illuminate the meaning of what's being read. And then this word list, the idea here is to cover the center column, if they're working on paper, cover it with a strip, and you dictate the words, and they try, without peeking, to write how it sounds to them. And the mistakes that they make are things that then you discuss with them. For example, most learners in this country leave out the vowels at the beginning because in Hebrew they don't have to write the vowels. In Arabic, I think they do write vowels, but it's still common to forget because they hear pin and they focus on the p and the n. Of course, Arabic speakers may not be able to say the p sound. Answers are then, you know, you have them uncover the answers and compare their answer to what's in the center column, which is the way to write the word. And as I say, discuss their questions. And your goal here should be always participation, effort. Don't reward for correct answers, because we want to encourage them to try and make mistakes and learn from their mistakes, of course. So they can self-correct this, and then they can volunteer if they want to discuss which things they spelled wrong and why. You know, that letters whose sound they forgot, or they left out vowels, or whatever. Okay, let's go on to the next page. And then in every game that's on the website, these are the paper documents, there's in every lesson on the website, there's a game. And here's one that if you send this out to students, it's a concentration game. They can cut up the squares and turn them over and match the words to the picture. And don't give too much attention to the fact that in lesson 1, the words are a little bit stupid, because believe me, it's hard to find words you can write with only those 5 letters. Very soon, immediately in lesson 2 and on, I would say that the vocabulary picks up. So, you know, my stepson teases me about the word spit, pit, and I wish he would get past it and go on to other lessons, and he would see that quite soon it's not so dumb. Now, you see this game here. This concentration game is played on paper. We're going to see later a similar game is in the app, so that they don't have to actually prepare anything on paper. But this is, you know, for somebody who doesn't have a smartphone or a tablet, could still practice playing a game. Okay. Here's an example of a story and word list. You know, only 10 lessons later, you can see that it's there's much more vocabulary, and they've already learned by that time a number of letters. I think there are 14 letters altogether in the first 10 lessons, which is quite a lot. In the religious version of this story, the grandfather dresses up for the Purim party not as Batman, but as Haman. And in the Arabic version, I think he's not Haman, he's just a bad guy. Or maybe he's still Batman. So I have adapted these stories in the books for different populations. There's also a version for Haredi boys where these stories are completely different, and we'll see that later. Okay, so this is just another example of a story and word list. The next slide is the game that comes in this lesson, where you cut up these words with their shapes. So you can see that the shape of the piece will determine where it fits in the sentence order. And you can, some of them mix up and make new sentences, but the goal is to try and make the sentences that are written there on the page to go along with these pictures that are on the right for the students to make the puzzles and lay them out. Okay. And on the website, there are many, many more games to download and prepare and play. And, you know, again, I really don't know how realistic this is for you to think that students might be able to do this on their own. Some of them you could probably play on your screen, and others it would be harder. I suppose like the lotto game you could probably put on your screen, but dominoes would probably be harder. As I say, there are games in the app that there are 3 different styles of games. We'll see them later, so that builds in practice. Okay, let's go. There are some Quizlet decks. Adele, if you want to just click on that first link. If you are familiar with Quizlet, it's a flashcard. You set up sets of flashcards. We have these sets of flashcards for each 10 lessons of words. And you, okay, they're organized by level. So these are the more advanced cards, and there's a list, and you can actually make up activities based on the words in the deck. Chagit Lahav in Givatayim, who I told you is teaching online. Adele, if you go back to the slide, you'll see a second link to another Quizlet activity.
Which
These
one?
are Chagit's, right. She set up multiple choice questions using Quizlet. And these are the words that the students have learned up until that lesson. And that's, of course, as we say, very important to try to kind of give them a safe environment with words that they can read and write, given, and that they've learned, you know, the meanings of, given what they've learned so far. And we know what they've learned so far because we only include words that they can read given what they've learned so far. Okay, so that's some more of the resources. Now, the English Club app, as I say, it's an app that follows this method, and for the, you know, when the Corona hit, I made it as free as I could. It's free on Apple and Apple devices, and on Android, the Google Play Store requires a minimum payment of 3 shekels, so that's how much it costs. It runs on smartphones and tablets. We had a project last year, the year before, where where Reed funded the purchase of tablets at schools. Those tablets at the school are not going to help the students who are learning from home, but I know that many people, not all the students, I'm sure, have access to a smartphone. And the app does not run on computers. I'm sorry. I had to choose where to put the investment, and I decided that mobile devices are more, you know, give the students more ability to practice on their own wherever they happen to be. That was the idea.
In the youth villages, I have to say that if you're teaching in a Kfar Noar, you got these tablets. I know that in a lot of the Kfarei Noar, they've been sending them out to students at home when we were in lockdown. But this year, all of our Kfarei Noar, Fern, I don't know if you know this, but all the Kfarei Noar have now been included in the special ed rules for Corona. So when special ed are back to school, so are our at-risk students in Kfarei Noar. And that's really important because we're going to have more face-to-face time with them, even if we have less face-to-face time with our other students who aren't as at risk.
That's great. I mean, certainly face-to-face teaching is
for sure. So a lot of these, tools that you're using are tools that in the Merkaz Lemidah, in your Kfar Noar, you can certainly print them out, laminate the cards, print them out on Bristol. You all have budget for these things in the Merkaz Lemidah. Be in touch with the Rakaz Merkaz Lemidah. They can help you. Sorry, friend.
Okay, no, thank you. Well, that's good that you still have access to those tablets. That was the biggest investment, I think, in that project. And, you know, the cost of the app, we went over this a million times. Everybody was confused about how to install it. It costs something like 53 shekels, and you can install it on all the tablets using the same ID. And there's also a second pack, which the students at home don't need, but if you're using a tablet at school, there's the ability to download, it's called the multi-user pack, and it gives the ability to log in, which normally on tablets and smartphones, you don't have that ability to keep track of separate users and their progress, because the manufacturers want to sell everybody a tablet. But we built in the ability to log in and say which user you are on that tablet so that it will keep track separately of the student's progress. And it really, even when it costs money, it costs next to nothing. You know, I would never claim that the app is instead of a teacher, but I can tell you that I used the app in my doctoral research with remedial students at an Amal school, 9th and 10th graders, who had a lovely young Mora Chayelet as their teacher. She had absolutely no training in how to teach English, never mind how to teach remedial English. And she had no idea, you know, she did her best, but she really, you know, did not know how to teach. Using the app and the book, she was really able to accompany the students through this learning process. And her role there was to encourage them, to hear them read out loud, to discuss the principles that were in the app, you know, taught in the app, such as what we said about B and D and C before all letters and all those. She discussed it with them, and then she heard them read, and she knew how to read English well enough. I think she got 70% on her 5-point English Bagrut. That's why she was made an English teacher in the Army. She knew she could read well enough to hear them read out loud and give them feedback about their reading, you know, make minor corrections when needed. And they really did very well with the app. So it really will guide them through, but it requires your support, you're accompanying them, you're going over the material. If you understand the material before they learn it, you can teach it to them separately, and then they can just practice it on the app. And you can download it for Hebrew, Arabic, or English speakers, so they hear the explanation in their L1. My daughter, who has an American accent like me, is the voice on the app for the English. Somebody had asked before, I saw a question go by about how much does it make allowance for differences in dialect among English speaking teachers. You know, however you say apple, that's your short A. However you say the ER at the end of, I know that some British people would say erasa and not eraser, then that's how you say ER. So whatever you teach them, they're going to be learning your accent. And that's fine. I mean, that there are variations in English accents due to where we all come from, and that's perfectly fine. And as I always relate, I once met a man who spoke English with a very strong German accent, and I asked him if his parents were from Germany, an Israeli man. He said, no, my English teacher was German. So whatever accent you speak with, that's what your students are going to hear and possibly imitate if they're able to imitate it. But the app speaks with an American accent. And it manages the students' progress. So it doesn't allow them to go on to the next level until they've demonstrated that they can actually read and identify the words using the letters that they've heard. They can hear the word and identify how to spell it. They can drag letters to spell the word. And there's also a game that matches meaning to the word to a picture. So it looks at comprehension. Okay. Here are some instructions about downloading the app. You'll all have this presentation. So there's the EnglishClubApp.com, has all the explanations about the books and the app. You can order books on that website. You just fill in the number of books you want of each type. Remember to choose the version that you want. And it explains also about the app. And here are some very brief installation instructions. There are also installation instructions on the website. You can download and print them and install. You need to choose the learner language first. So if you want it in Hebrew, you need to indicate that and download it in Hebrew, and then the rest will follow in Hebrew versus Arabic versus English. You know, you might want it in English if you understand English the best, and then have your students download it in their L1. It takes some time to download because it's got a lot of files in it, pictures, videos. So do it when you're connected to Wi-Fi, and you know, at a time. If you're having trouble, then try mid-morning, because the United States, most of the United States is asleep. I have to say that last night I downloaded onto an iPhone at about 9 o'clock at night, because I wanted to get a picture of some of the games that to include in this presentation. And it went quite fast and it was quite smooth. I know sometimes people have trouble, but if you have a good connection, then you should be able to download it easily, okay? You do need, of course, a username and password in the App Store or the Android Google Play Store. You need to have an account in the Google Play Store with a credit card, because there it costs 3 shekels. The Apple Store, you don't need to have an account. You need a username and password, but I don't think, because it's free there, it won't ask you for you to approve an outlay. Okay.
Fern, let me just say something.
Yeah.
I really would prefer that we didn't talk about how much it costs and where you buy it, because I can help you with that after. We only have Fern for an hour to talk about pedagogy and methodology. Okay, afterwards, if you can't figure it out, you can call me. If you're in a kfar noar or a pinimiya with a baalut, then you can talk to me and we can work out how to pay it. So let's move on, at least to the fact that, for example, there are questions that I want to ask. So you can write your questions in a minute, but I do want to say one more thing. I don't know if you said it as clearly as I want it to be, but the books, the sets of books, are for different also cultural populations.
Right.
Okay.
We're going to get to that okay, let's move along and we'll get to that. You'll see.
Because Fern, theoretically, we have half an hour left and I want to have time for questions.
Okay. I think we're on schedule. Okay. So it's the same activities in each level of the app: review, learn new material of different types, and then practice it in different ways. Okay, we can move along. The same. Adele?
Yeah.
This is what the app looks like on a smartphone. You see that all the lessons are there on the left, and the ones that are open are the ones that the student has already completed. There will also be closed boxes, and in order to gain access to them, the student has to complete the previous lessons. Everything has to be stamped as completed. You see there's a checklist on the wall of the students learning the virtual desk there that keeps track of what they're up to, and anything that you haven't yet crossed off on that list is something that the student still needs to do. And then there's an additional page there, you see it called achievements, with albums of everything the student has learned so far and how many medals they've earned. You can see that the trophies on the shelf fill up as the student completes the lessons in a set of 10. So every 10 lessons, one of the trophies fills up with color, and that's how you can see in a glance what you're up to. And each of those albums, I don't have screenshots of them, but each of them contains all the material they've learned in terms of the stories, the words that they can write, the tips they've learned, and they can use it to review, to change their clue word if they want to. You know, I want to say that sometimes people say, well, these are older students, they're going to think it's too babyish because you know, it looks like it's for younger students. But we tried with the illustrator, tried to make some of the characters look like teenagers, and that's just, you know, it's always a problem to match the English level of teenage learners to the content that they can learn if they're beginning learners. So, you know, you need to encourage the students, they just need to get through these 50 lessons and they can move on to read much more sophisticated material. Okay, this is the review. Each one of those colors of cards has its own, you'll see that if you click on the box, the different cards will come up, and these are things that the student has already learned, and we're just trying to refresh their memory. A common reaction on the part of the students is, "Aval lamadeti et ze kvar," you know, I already learned this, and they don't really understand the concept of refreshing their memory. So, you know, that's what you have to explain to them. You already learned it, but we are going to go over it again just to refresh your memory so you can use it in this lesson. You'll remember better, okay? Go ahead. Okay, this is in the review, writing the sounds. Here, Valentina is dictating, and if you tap any of these pictures, you can hear the sound that they're saying as many times as you need to. Valentina is saying the sound ha, ha, like hamburger. The clue word is hamburger, but if the student doesn't hear it the first time, they can request to see and hear the clue word, and then try to write it. And then, as you see, if you do the check, the flip over the card, you'll see the correct way to encode that sound, and you can check yourself. And if you got it right, you can say thumbs up, and if you didn't, you can fix it and then do thumbs down. It will come up again in the review. Okay, continue. So all the new material, as I said, is contained in the form of cards, which makes it very digestible amounts, one letter or a combination at a time on the white cards. Each pink card is a tip, and the yellow cards have the new letter or new target material, the new tip or letter, together with anything that's been learned before. And those are the words. And as I say, we try to focus on the common words. Keep going. So here are what the white cards look like on the app. When you tap the front, flip the card, you get the back, and you can hear internet, ice cream. And you can also practice writing on the screen with your finger, how the capital and lowercase form of the letter is written with the correct writing directions. And, you know, if the student does it on the screen and then holds, if you're doing it on, let's say you're teaching over Zoom and the students are working on a smartphone, they can hold it up to the camera so you can see, the teacher can see what they're actually writing and can see that they are writing it. Okay, let's go on. This is what the tips look like. I didn't put the video here again, but in the window on the app, the video that we saw before from YouTube will play and go through the explanation. Again, the learners can watch it as many times as they want to understand the content. Okay. And here's another tip. This is the rules of capitalization, you know, that we use capital letters, which is a concept foreign to Hebrew, also to Arabic. We use capital letters at the beginning of names, sentences, and the important words and titles. Of course, you can add to that just the letter I is always capitalized. It's also a video. This is screenshots from a video. Okay. The yellow cards have the words, and the advantage of using the app is that they can hear the word pronounced. If it's a word that's spelled the way it sounds and goes by all the normal rules, it's green. This is according to the Orton-Gillingham. Green words are regular words, and red words are irregular words. I is irregular, as we said, because that's the only letter in English that's always, the only word that's always capitalized, because it's like a name. And as they tap the word, they hear it spoken, and in even the syllable that's accented, the one that has the dagesh, is in bold when they say it, because isn't, it's important that we say isn't and not isn't, right? So it's kind of a subconscious message that they see the bolded syllable as the word is pronounced. They see the bolded syllable is the accented one. And here you see that on the front is with pictures, and if they can flip the card over and see the definition in Hebrew or Arabic on the back. Okay, also you have the choice of Spanish, but that's not really relevant to our population. Once they've learned the new material, you see all the boxes, the review and the new material goes up to the shelf. The story, word list, and game appear on the desk, and they can do them really in any order that they want. They need to complete all the activities and get 2,000 points in the game to move on to the next lesson. In the story, there are a number of different options. The learner should read the story aloud from the text that's printed. They can also record themselves reading the story aloud and play it back so that they can compare how it sounds when they say it to how it sounds when my daughter reads it aloud. And they also can flip over the picture and see the translation of the sentences into their own L1. The only thing that they actually have to do to finish the story, they don't have to record themselves, but they do need to at least hear the story all the way through. It's hard to enforce making sure that they've read it correctly, and that is absolutely the most important job of the teacher in accompanying the students through this process, is to hear them read the stories aloud at the end when they finish each level. Here's a picture of what one of the stories looks like. If you tap the globe, it gives you the translation. If you tap the red dot, it records you. And you can see in the third slide there that if you tap on the translation, it flips over the picture and you get the translation on the back. Okay, so there are the same six frames in every story, but here, as you see there, each one is on its own separate page. But in principle, they're the same stories that are on paper and in the books.
One of the things I'd like to say is that from the experience that we've had in a lot of our schools, this is it seems very confusing. The kids just do it, okay? They just know how to do it. They know where to click. They know what to do. It sounds for us like it flips. We have to click. We have to move. We have to do. It does this. It does that. They figure it out, okay? In some of our youth villages, we had the madrichim teach. They weren't even English teachers. Mm-hmm. That was the beauty of the program in the beginning, that we had shinshinim that were sitting and just guiding the students. The students were doing this by themselves. You don't have to know. It's, of course, professional to go and learn about the Hickey method and to go in and look at what the students are doing and to be involved. But they do it. It's very self-motivating, and it's very autodidactic the way you go through it. And so don't be so overwhelmed. I see the chat. Calm down, okay? It seems like a lot of slides and cards and this and that. It's giving you options, and it's very simple. It just works. The students know how to do it. The teacher's guide tells you how to do it, and the books themselves are systematic, okay? I think that you're just seeing a lot of options and getting overwhelmed. Okay, that's the beauty of it, is that they work. It's very, 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 very sequential. and they know how to do it. The app, they play for hours. Okay?
Yeah, that's
So
right.
I'm just, because the chat is
the
like, oh my
kids
God, we
know-
need a
the kids
Hishtanmut, we need 40 hours, we don't need, okay? This has been working in our youth villages and the kids know how to do it. And they've really been working, okay? So just be there, okay? Just listen to all of the different options, and when you see the kits, you'll understand, okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, that's what I say too, that really they know, they have an intuitive grasp and they're not afraid to tap things and try things, and they figure it out very fast. That's the digital native versus digital migrants that the older generation is. I just put in this this example. This is the last story in the English club. That's the level of English that they get up to after the 50 lessons. So you can see that they've come quite a long way from, this is a lesson that focuses on the ER combination because of the R-controlled vowel, that R changes the sound of vowels that come before it, and that's a principle that we teach. And here's an example with ER and also the meanings of suffixes that have ER, faster and driver and teacher. We teach the meaning of it and how to say it and lots of common words that use it. So this is the level that they get up to after the 50 lessons. Yeah. Okay, here's—
We're gonna stop in 3 minutes, Fern.
Okay, we're almost done, I think. Well, okay, we'll go a little bit faster. This is writing words in the app. Adele, you can kind of keep popping through. That's writing words and self-check. This is one of the games. You need to get 2,000 points. Here's another game where you drag letters, and here's a concentration game where you match the word to the picture. So this is all part of the app. Now we got to the books. The books are in 5 brief books. Each one has 10 lessons, and the goal of that is to really give them the opportunity, give them the experience of finishing a book and moving on to another book. And I really urge you, if you use the books, to celebrate after you finish every book. And
Pizza.
it has
Pizza.
have right a pizza party. If you can't do that, have the kids, I don't know, bake a cake. If the kitchen allows you to bake a cake and play games, play English games that use what they've learned up until now. The books contain the same material as the app, follows along in the same order, but it does give more flexibility because you can flip around in a book where it's a little bit harder to, you can't, open future lessons on the app until you've completed the work. And there's a teacher's guide, okay, and that contains all the instructions. There are several versions of the books. The original is just for, secular kids. The Arabic speakers version has some adjustments to the pictures for tzniut. We use this in Saudi Arabia, not the books, but the online part on a website that was built, and we made the pictures a little more tsanua, but it also has the tips in Arabic. And then there's the traditional Jewish dress version that everybody is clothed appropriately for religious, I would say, mamlechti dati sort of schools. And then recently I made a version, next slide, for Haredi boys. And if you're working with Haredi boys, this is a different set of lessons, completely rewritten for Haredi boys to meet the requirements of Ruth Elitzur's Department of Haredi Schools.
She's lovely.
Here's where you can order them. The website, EnglishClubApp.com. The other website, you can, if you want books. But next slide. What I want to emphasize is to recap that you don't have to buy the books in order to be able to use the app and the documents online, or to send out the documents to the students or to print them out. You don't have to buy the books. So even if you, I mean, I understand, Judy, that there is some budget, but even if you don't have budget to buy books, you are able to.
The schools can handle buying 2 or 3 sets of books. It's not a problem.
Okay.
And they should be able to handle it. If there's a problem, the coordinator can talk to me.
Okay. And yeah, somebody just asked a question. I was not able yet, I don't have the personal funds to do this, to adapt the app to all the different versions. So if you're going to use the app for original, it's in the original version, not and the Arabic speakers version uses the same pictures and talks in Arabic. There isn't one with Kipot or the Haredi. It's all the original version in the app. Okay. And I think the last slide, this is my email address. Please write to me if you have questions after this, after we finish answering questions. Okay.
Okay,
Questions?
I'm going to stop recording and stop share.
I sent you a poll now to answer. It's going to pop up on your screen.
Yeah. Got it.
I'd like you to answer the poll. It's anonymous. I don't know who it is. I'd like you to answer